Hey fellow Star Citizens, Scrapchat here. In this episode, I thought I'd take some time and talk about trade, or how I like to refer to it, running cargo. Briefly, let's start at the beginning. For those who are new to the game loop of trade, first there are no missions. You simply fly to a location, which sells a commodity you're interested in, and purchase it. You then head on over to a location that will buy it from you, whereupon you sell it. That is trade in a nutshell. You can start whenever you want and stop whenever you want. Technically, you could use almost any ship in the verse, however, the ships with the largest cargo capacity will be the most profitable. That's not saying you should start out with a Hercules, with a C2 Hercules Starlifter, like the one I'm flying here, but eventually you'll want either this or a Caterpillar. After you have a ship worthy of carrying cargo, you'll need to decide what your best option is for commodities. Smaller ships, I think, are better suited for more expensive commodities like Laranite or Agricium. These commodities typically are produced in smaller quantities and will come closer to filling a smaller ship, whereas commodities like titanium and fluorine can be had in much larger quantities and will fill a C2. This brings me to my first rule of cargo running. Rule number 1, only fill up once. Why is that? I mean, I could sit around at Bezdek on Ariel for an hour or two and fill up my C2 with Laranite, and then sell it for well over 200k. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I'll tell you why. The law of averages and time are conspiring against you the minute you make a purchase. The longer you take between the first purchase and the time you store your ship or make the sale, the greater the chance of the following happening. Your internet goes down, SIG decides to reboot the server you're on, at least that's what I'm thinking is going on. Your app crashes on your computer, a fellow player decides to mess with you, pirates show up and shoot up your ship, and then again there's also just use your imagination. At some point, you'll be caught by one of those while you have cargo in your hold sitting around waiting to fill your ship, only increases the chances. I'm fine when any of these happen to me when my hold is empty, but when it's full, not a good day. Why is that? Because in most cases, not all, you'll find yourself waking up at your spawn point and having to claim your ship, which causes you to lose all your cargo. I can count on 2 fingers the number of times I was able to recover after I lost my connection to the game. One of them I recently made a video about. That was a good day. My second rule of running cargo is this. Rule number 2, keep your runs short. I hear some folks say they buy at such and such a location and then fly across Stanton to sell at such and such a location. For all the reasons I just listed, you want to keep your runs short. I never let mine run longer than 10 minutes tops. From the time I click on the buy to the time I store my ship or make the sale, no more than 10 minutes. Less if you can manage it. My next rule is more of a guideline since I tend to break it and it's going to be harder to avoid now that there are 100 players on the server at any given time. Rule number 3, avoid people at all costs. Whenever I arrive at a location, especially when my hold is full and I'm about to make a sale, if I see another player, alarms start going off. I mean, unless you're landing at a major spaceport, then it's expected. When you're landing at SMC-A-6 on Calliope, though, that's a whole other story. Initially, you should be able to tell if they've landed or just flying nearby. The little white ship icon will usually appear on the quantum location marker if they've landed. That's an okay sign. Still concerning. When I'm approaching the landing pad, I'll check out the ship. If it's a fighter, I know I have a problem. If it's too small for running cargo, I'll keep an eye on it once I land, as the crew may be lurking about, waiting to hop aboard my ship, which has happened to me before. In fact, the other day, I saw this on my way coming down. By the time I realized what it was, I was pretty much committed to landing, so I got down as fast as I could and left the quantum drive running in case I needed to get out of Dodge. I still have no idea why he was there. I landed, made my sale, and was on my way, and he just kind of hung out. And my next rule, don't invest all of your credits in a single run. It's tempting to take every credit you have and dump it into your hold. Believe me, I know. Back in the early days of 3.17.1, I woke up one day and SIG had reduced my bank account from 2 million credits to 4. I immediately flew up to Microtech in one of my fighters and grinded illegal monitors detected missions until I got to around 200k. At that time I was running titaniums out of Ariel, and to fill my C2 I really needed over 500k. So I took my measly 200k and went back to running titanium. And I dumped every credit into that C2's hold. I was okay for the first several runs, but then the law of averages caught up to me and I lost it all before I could earn the 500k I needed to run the C2 at full speed in terms of profitability. As a rule, don't spend more than half of your credits on a single run. If you have multiple ships that can run cargo, that's fine. Back when we had multiple ships, SIG had given me 5 additional C2s. So I would fill up 3 of them and store them in Lorville Spaceport before heading over down to the TDD to make the sale. I was able to do that because I had a ton of credits and losing any one load of titanium wouldn't cripple me. So those are some of my rules for running cargo. Now let's see how I figure out a route. Not saying this is the best way or the only way. It's just my way, and I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments about how you work out your routes. Anyway, let's continue. To decide what would work for me, I use this website. It's called UEX. I know there are some other trading websites out there, just that this one is the one I use. Again, not saying it's the best, I just happen to like it. I primarily use the trade tab to work out my routes. As you can see, there's a list of commodities across the top, a section listing the details about the route, like how much you'll need to invest, profit, etc. Then there's a ship info section where you can define which ship you'll be using for the route, and below that the trade points, basically where you'll be buying and selling your commodities. The rest of the page I don't really use, at least I haven't found a real good use for it yet. To start, I select the ship I plan on using for the route. In this case I chose the Freelancer Max as it's a decent cargo ship and is available as a standalone ship in the pledge store. As you can see, UEX is telling us that if we filled our hold with titanium from Bezdek on Ariel for 90k and sold it at Lorville, we'd make a 17k. I can make that run round trip in like 25 minutes, so figure about 34k an hour. Bezdek also sells Laranite, so if that's available, take however much they'll give you. Then top off with the titanium. And that brings me to the next rule. Buy the most profitable commodity first. In this case, I'll buy whatever Laranite is available, but not wait around for the next load to become available. I then immediately fill up the rest of the hold with titanium. Which brings us to this rule. Always leave full. I'm sure it's obvious, but don't fly your big old cargo ship, with it only being 10% full. And this is where things get tricky. Your start point has to be able to fill you to 100%, and your end point has to be willing to buy everything you have to sell. Otherwise, you'll break rule number 2, because you'll have to fly somewhere else to hopefully unload all of your cargo. And then there's this. Rule number 7. Your start point and end point need to be consistent. What does that mean? The best route is one that can be done repetitively without fail. Where you're buying from must always be able to fill your hold with what you want, and where you're selling your cargo must always be able to take all you have. You may think, well, of course, why wouldn't that always be the case? With a lot of commodities, this is not the case. I give you the tale of medical supplies and stems. C2 full of med supplies and stems is worth around 200k, and I wanted to test out a route for that, so I broke rule number 1 and sat around at Hicks Research on Cellin and filled my C2 to the brim with medical supplies. I then flew on over to Arc L2, only to find out they didn't need all of my medical supplies. In fact, they took around 3% of what I had. I thought maybe a large city would take my load. No. Again, a small percentage, and that was at Area 18. It took me hours over the course of a couple days to unload all those medical supplies. Had I just adhered to rule number 1, I would have found that med supplies weren't as popular as I thought. Instead of wasting time and getting really lucky, I didn't bump into rule number 1's potential pitfalls. And finally, I give you rule number 8. Big ships get cheap shit, smaller ships get expensive shit. Really, this dovetails into rule number 1. If you're running a Hercules C2 Starlifter, don't think you'll be filling up with Laranite or Grikium. That's just icing on top of whatever's available. Larger ships are looking for the cheap stuff like fluorine and titanium or scrap. That will fill your hold in a single go. Conversely, if you're running a smaller cargo ship like a Cutlass Black or a Freelancer, you can look at Laranite or Grikium as your primary cargo. Let's look at the Cutlass Black. I can buy Laranite at ArcCorp on Walla and sell it at Area 18. If I'm lucky, I come close to filling it, making 17k. That location also sells diamonds, which aren't bad as a backfill to the Laranite. So probably somewhere around 15 to 17k probably. That's around 40 to 50k per hour, I bet. Well folks, those are my 8 simple rules for running cargo. If you can think of some I may have left off, feel free to comment below. If you feel this video was helpful, please subscribe and smash that like button. It really helps the channel to grow and be seen by others who definitely benefit from not only what I've learned, but from all of the great comments we get here at Noob Citizen that have helped me become a better player too. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Scrapjet out.